Is Ret still a meme spec? As we look forward to Shadowlands, we've seen Ret get so many good buffs, so many good changes that it's looking better and better, like Ret has finally turned the corner from meme to dream. But if Classic has shown us anything, it's that Ret has had a lot of problems over the years, and it started out in a very tough spot. So let's see where we're at. Have we really turned the corner? If you're already subscribed, welcome back. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for more Ret Paladin content. And if you enjoy the video, please be sure to hodge that like button. Now let's get into it. So if you played Paladin in Classic or in Vanilla, you'll know that Ret Paladin has a lot of significant problems that it started the game with. And unfortunately, a lot of those problems have continued forward into future expansions. So you can see how far I got into Classic. I have a level 13 Paladin right now, just because it's painful to see how the spec plays. And a couple of the fundamental problems it had was that the talents were just not very well designed. They were kind of all over the place. There were talents that were clearly Ret talents in other trees. And then in addition to that, the way that Ret Paladin scaled was really, really bad compared to someone like a rogue or a warrior who got access to legendary weapons and things like that. And because Ret Paladins did holy damage, a lot of our damage had to come from spell power. So you had to try to find strength for your melee and your seal of command, and then also spell power to boost those things as well, which made it very hard to gear. Alright, so in TBC, things got so much better, and that's especially true if you were a Horde Paladin, where you got access to Seal of Blood, which is a complete game change. We got access to Crusader Strike, so we had another button to press. We got Consecration Baseline and Seal of Blood, and there was an ability called Spiritual Attunement that allowed you to get mana back after you were healed, and Seal of Blood did damage to you, so you had a constant feeding of mana. So in TBC, things got so much better, but that's as far as we're going to go in the history lesson. Now let's see what's going on in Shadowlands.
No one goes home until our job here is done.
Alright, so going into Shadowlands, there's been a lot of negativity about Ret, especially from a lot of the other YouTubers who are covering it. So I'm not saying these guys are saying anything wrong. I'm just saying there's a lot of negativity and there's a lot of skepticism because I think Ret has this built up long-term kind of stigma that associated with it. And we're going to look at a few clips from some people, and I'm not saying I disagree with anything they're saying. I'm just giving you an idea of kind of what the community sentiment is about Ret going into Shadowlands. And all of these clips are from very recently.
Right now it's doing a lot of damage, and I think banking on that class to kind of maintain that crazy burst in PvP is pretty unlikely. And I would just say that if that got nerfed or if the off-healing got nerfed, it's probably going to end up being a subpar melee class in PvP. For PvE, the Ret also hasn't performed that well. We did see it, I think, in one of the World First races, but in general on the meters currently, it's not looking that amazing. So if you are interested in playing Ret, it's not going to be as smooth of a ride if you were to play like a warrior or a DK. You'll probably find teams much easier. So just something to keep in mind if you're interested in PvP, and for PvE, not the absolute best performance.
It's a spec that I'm really worried about, being just a builder spender, hodge pop wings in PvP, and being a little bit too simple. But if you're someone who likes the spin to win playstyle, you want something that's going to be a little bit more simpler, then it would be ranked higher for you on your list. But for myself, it's definitely more complicated than the Fury Warrior or the Frost Death Knight, which is why I have difficulty putting it here on the B tier. I feel like it's still an A tier spec.
Ret Paladin, which I'm going to be placing in the C tier. Ret Paladin's damage profile just isn't great for dungeons and often has to choose between AoE and single target damage. The target cap on Divine Storm hurt their burst AoE, which was their main selling point, and now both their cleave and area of effect is a lot less powerful than it used to be. Although the GCD changes helped, depending on your talent setup, you still might have these awkward openers with lots of GCDs required before you can actually push offensive buttons, if you're running talents like Inquisition or Seraphim.
Alright, so you can see that overall that was a pretty mixed bag. So we talked about PvP a little bit, about dungeons, about raiding and things like that. So a lot of the content creators are pretty skeptical of Ret Paladins, but I want you to take a look at what Paladin can do in the pre-patch as far as PvP burst. So if you're interested in PvP, take a look.
Like right now. Now I'm pumping. With my burst, so I can actually kill him real soon. Never mind. Let's kill him now.
So as you can see, Burst is one of Ret Paladin's biggest strengths going into Shadowlands, and one of the things that Blizzard is very clearly doing, at least from my eyes, is they are very clearly positioning Ret as this bursty kind of spec. And we already kind of saw that in BFA, where we saw things like Vision of Perfection, just kind of underlining this keep wings up, be bursty, things like that. But going into Shadowlands, we can see that this is even going more, we're even drilling down deeper into that. And that's really, really helpful in PvP. And honestly, this burst thing isn't anything that's new. I'm showing some footage now from a classic Ret Paladin, where this kind of burst damage has always been one of the strengths of the Ret Paladin. So I think in some ways we're kind of going back to our roots of the classic Ret Paladin, which was absolutely a meme spec back then. But if you geared right and you spec'd right and did all the right things, you could definitely do some good burst damage. And while your sustained damage never got to the place where someone like a Fury Warrior was in PvE, you could still do some really good damage in PvP. And on a lot of fights, you could do competitive DPS as well. So we're seeing some of that come back into Shadowlands, and I think that as long as we can get to this point where we're bursty enough in PvP where we can still get kills, but we're also able to do a little bit of enough sustained damage, we can also do well in PvE as well. So I think we're definitely getting into a good spot. All right, so to recap, Ret Paladin is obviously a spec that I'm going to recommend for anybody who really likes melee, who really likes to have a lot of utility and just bring a lot to the team, and someone that has a pretty low skill cap, I would say, as far as getting the spec up and running, but at the same time, to be able to really add a lot to your team and to be able to maximize all your cooldowns and your bursts and your defensive, can have actually a really high skill cap. And if you have a really good Ret Paladin on your team, you're going to know. You're going to know that they pop lay on hands at the right time. You're going to know that they know to bop off bleeds. You're going to know that they know when to use Word of Glory versus continuing to pump damage and things like that. Are we going to be the top DPS? No, we are not. So if you're trying to play Ret Paladin to be the top DPS spec in the game, I think you're going to be probably disappointed, but I'm okay with that. I've been playing Ret a long time, as I'm sure a lot of you have, but if you want to play the top DPS spec, go look at the rankings, go find out what's going to be the top DPS spec. But I do believe that Ret Paladin is one of the best specs in the game, if not the best spec, because of just how fun it is and just how much you can really bring to the table. And if you really play it right, you can have so much fun and contribute a lot to your either Mythic Plus or to rating or even in PvP. So that is all for the video, guys. If you stuck with me to the end, please be sure to hush that like button and subscribe for more Ret Paladin content. I'll see you in the next one.